Dog Motorsports is the latest, most creative, and important invention for working dog breeds in many years, with the opportunity for all dogs, regardless of breed, size, or age, to get involved with. Dog Motorsports are electric-powered bikes and rigs that dogs can be exercised with in a variety of ways, depending on your goals, the area you're at, and time. Virtually no training is required, and high-energy breeds can be exercised properly, quickly, and efficiently without spending hours on end trying to satisfy them, or as I like to say, tucker them out. I'm Bill WooFDriver Hellman, also known as the Dog Adventurer, and have pioneered the whole concept of dog motorsports and have proven it with multiple generations of Huskies, constantly refining it and perfecting it for almost 30 years now. This is something you have to actually see to believe. As a WooFDriver, I travel the East Coast of the USA with my Huskies, doing dog motorsports on trails, roads, beaches, and even in the cities. Check out the latest dog motorsports video coming up right now. Hey everybody, WooFDriver coming to you. Actually, this is I think our third episode on my dog motorsports, WooFDriver garage, whatever I call it, a WooFDriver workshop. So I'm showcasing, really I hope to get to all my bikes, even the ones that I started out in the beginning. Lately, the first few episodes are some of the newer styles and newer additions and actually newer bikes. But these are all, I look on them as works of art because everything has been fine-tuned, designed, customized, and in some cases custom built totally from the ground up for the dogs. So, and as I get more experienced, as I learn more from having different dogs and learning all the possible personalities, well, I don't know if it's possible to learn them all, but having so many different personalities, I'm refining my bikes. That's why I say they're constantly being refined and re-engineered all the time to make it the best experience for the dogs and also make it the best experience possible. And what I mean by that is efficiency. So because some of these dogs, the younger ones especially that are highly energetic, you can take them on 20-mile run, and sometimes depending on how you run them, that might not be anything to them, a drop in the bucket. What I mean by how you run them, again, using weighted vest, using resistance training by weighted vest, of course, but also how I angle how they're tethered, or if I'm tethering them on two sides, one side, whatever I'm doing. So it's all about keeping the dogs, giving them the best experience and keeping them as healthy as possible. So this takes me to a newer bike that I have, and this is actually, I'm one of the few people in the United States, I actually imported this directly from Australia. So this bike is actually a stand-up version. So you stand up and push the throttle and go. You see it has no pedals, and it actually didn't come, a lot of these bikes don't come with parking brakes. We actually added a parking brake, and that's a little bit of wizardry there, or a little bit of really, I should say, engineering. When the bike's not fully designed for it, I have to get my team, and especially my main man, Crispy, to come up with a way to put a parking brake on a vehicle like this. So the parking brake is essential when you're running dogs, because especially more than one, because keeping the bike still, when they see something and you're trying to take out a little bit of water here, trying to water the dog, and they want to pull it. So the parking brake keeps it pretty stable. And having, I've mentioned this before, but again, having a stance like this, a footprint like this, where you have three wheels, is going to prevent them pretty good from tipping it over, depending where you attach them. If you give them more leverage, then the higher up, usually more leverage, they can pull it over easier. The lower down, it's harder to pull it over. So if you're dealing with a two-wheel bike, a lot of people use, they're not doing quite what I'm doing, so they're using, they're doing bike joring, they call it, where they have a line out in front, and when they stop, they usually have to, they're usually two-wheel bikes again, they usually have to put the bike on the ground. And that becomes a problem because you don't want to, you got a lot of, today's day and age, I got a lot of instrumentation, a lot of stuff there, and it's kind of an anchor for the dogs, but you're putting today probably a pretty expensive piece of equipment on the ground, and nothing's to say the dogs can't still pull that if they want to and mar that thing all up and create quite a ruckus. So with this bike, it's called a DC Trike, again imported from Australia. And it's got the 3-wheel stance. It's got small wheels in the back. It doesn't make it ideal for off-roading, but that's not what I'm using it for. Good for most bike trails, certainly pavement. It can go over some grass with its big, I believe that's a 26-inch wheel here. And one of the problems, and I wouldn't say it's a full problem depending on what you're doing, is these kinds of designs have what they call a front wheel hub. So the motor's built into the wheel, which is awesome because you don't have chains and you don't have other things that can break on it, essentially. So with the front hub, I love that, but the problem is because there's no real weight up there, the weight's back here where you're standing on the platform, this doesn't get a lot of traction and there's a lot of slippage. And if you start going up a hill or you do get into loose gravel, it can start spinning and sliding. So you have to be aware, know your equipment you're running, but it's still a wonderful, wonderful bike to use, especially for training dogs in the beginning when you're introducing them to something. Right now, I'm using it for my old guy, Chase, and he's almost 14 years old, and I mounted these springers. These are what I like for this bike because it seems to fit it really nicely. We had to customize it a little bit to get it around the thick main bar here, but using a springer, all different kinds of tethers I can use, but I will let you know that this is what they call a triple locking carabiner, essentially. And this carabiner, I don't like carabiners that have screw-ons because when you're out in the cold and you're trying to screw something on, it's a pain in the butt. If you forget to screw it on, it can open up. If it opens up, it can let the dog off the leash. I've had that happen before. Depending on how your dog is trained, most of the time the dogs just stay with you anyway, for the most part, till a distraction or something else might occur. So this triple action carabiner makes it so you have to push down in 2 places to unlock it, and then you can have access to the main lock. That's really cool. Keeps it on the bike, keeps the dog on it. Then it has a swivel, which prevents the dog from twisting itself. So sometimes harnesses can get twisted, and sometimes their line, if you have a little tether like we do here, that can get twisted up. And it's not going to necessarily hurt anything, but you got to keep stopping and untwisting it because it becomes uncomfortable for the dogs. So triple action or triple locking carabiner, swivel carabiner. So I put that on the Springer, and a lot of these carabiners I use for almost all my devices because they're so trustworthy, if you will. They're not cheap, roughly 50 bucks a carabiner, but they'll last you forever. The other carabiner, when I don't need a swivel carabiner, usually to hook directly to the dog from the carabiner, if I was just using this triple swivel carabiner, I could hook right in there if I wanted to keep the dog close and I wouldn't need this tether. So this carabiner there's a couple companies that make them. They're hard to find now. In the past, they were easier to get a hold of. These are magnetrons from Black Diamond, and you can simply pinch it. It's somewhat magnetic, as I understand it, but you can pinch it to open it. Again, it's not a locking mechanism. It's locked, but it's not a twist lock or some other configuration. This just makes it easy if you have gloves on. Remember, a lot of times we're running these dogs in the colder temperatures, things freeze up, and this has never failed me. So good carabiner. So I keep this with a tether, and this tether, by the way, is what they use. It's like a motorcycle tie down that you can easily get on Amazon. These are kind of cheap, but this is nice because it gives them a little bit of distance, and I run him on the grass. My old guy, again, Chase, he's 14, and running him just in the neighborhood on the grass it's easy on his feet because he drags his back feet because of arthritis and other age-related health issues. So I still use booties because he likes to sprint, believe it or not, just all the work I've done with him and the great shape that he's still in, fortunately. So I keep him on the grass, but this longer tether really helps when I need to get on the pavement because I got to go around something. You can't always, it's about a 2-mile run we're doing daily. He can't be totally on it because of mailboxes and other things in the way. So I use booties. So with this bike though, it's got a kind of a plastic platform. It's interesting because it's got a wheel in the back, if you will, and I can't show you now, because I probably could. You can move it on the rear wheel here. And that's just good for moving around if you're gonna load it into your car. It's just another way of giving you easier access, making it a little more mobile. I've gone ahead and attached these magnetic catches. I use something called, I believe they're called angel lights, if you will, and it's nothing religious. I thought that in the beginning, but they're actually really bright, and they can go in all kinds of patterns, and the brighter the better. The battery life's not great, probably lasts a couple hours depending on the brightness level you run it, but this is really nice because it lights up on the sides, it lights up all pretty much 360, and you can limit it to extend the battery life. Like if I don't need it to that side, I don't need it facing me, I can just run it one way. I put one on the front, one on the back, and one on the front. And these work wonders for people seeing us. Again, we're running on the streets here. Even on trails, sometimes I might use these. Nice thing about them, once you have some, you can interchange them because they make these magnetic mounts, which means you can have a magnetic mount on every bike or every unit you have, and you can just have the angel light in your pocket. These, I think, police use those. They make them for security, whatever. They make them in different colors, which is cool because I also use them on the dog's harnesses and collars to identify. If I'm running at night, I can say, oh yeah, that's the green dog. I know that dog is Jag. I used to have Jag would be the green dog, and I have all colors for dogs. That's how I keep track of all their equipment, personal equipment, harnesses, collars, leashes, etc. So that's with all my bikes. I try to put some kind of light on them for visibility, for people to see me. That doesn't include the light that I use to see out if I'm running at night. I do have a mount for that. I don't have the light with me here, but I use the same light almost on all my bikes because it's an expensive light, like a $400 or $500 light. Super bright, Cree LEDs they call them, and they last for a long time. A really nice unit. I'll show that on one of the next episodes, but I have a mount for that. Usually not running at night in the neighborhood because there's still cars. I don't like to do roads at night unless I have a team with me. With this bike also, I changed the whole remember, the only way to move this bike is to actually kind of kick like a musher would do. I don't know if you can see that from that view, but you're kicking like that, or to use the motor. And it did come with a battery. As I explained, the front wheel is powered. It's got that hub motor. So we took the battery off because batteries, they want to charge you anywhere from $600 to maybe $1,000. So this is what they call a 48 volt system, which means it runs on a 48 volt battery. And I would say that's about average for bikes today. Some can go 60 volt systems, some go 36 volt systems. We're using Ego batteries, and these with voltage, there's a lot of leeway in there. And again, I rely on my man Crispy, who's a master electrician, to figure all the, I guess, all the specs out so everything works together. But we're using Ego 56 volt batteries. I think I explained in one of my other episodes. You can get these usually at Lowe's, sometimes on Amazon, sometimes on Facebook Marketplace. They're a lot more common than a specialized bike battery made for this bike in Australia. I would have to find that exact battery and to ship it from over there. One came with the bike, but one is never enough for me because I never know how long I'm going to go. I mean, we go for, could be up to 30 miles if I'm using this, not for my old guy, but for my other guys, my other dogs. So the Ego battery gives me the ability to have multiple batteries anytime. If I need a new battery, just drop into Lowe's or any hardware store that handles them. Ace Hardware does. And you can find these adapters on Amazon that fit this. And again, my master electrician, Crispy, rigged it all up so it can go right to this motor, this front hub motor. So also we've added things, and it's hard to see because I've got these saddlebags, but I've got a front bike rack, which makes these saddlebags really accessible, and I can carry almost anything in them. They're real big, so for the old guy, I'll carry the booties like I talked about, waist bags. Here, carry a multitude of items that I'm going to use for the dogs. And of course, the front basket gives me a spot to put the water. Again, I love these water jugs because you could just unscrew the cap, dog drinks out of it, and you don't need to carry a separate water bowl. All the dogs can share it. It's really nice. Always keep a leash. This is a lasso leash, I call them. So you could, if a stray dog would ever come up to me, I could easily put this, hopefully easily, you got to be careful sometimes, you don't want to get bit, but a lot easier than trying to hook to a collar if he had a collar on, or she, just kind of lasso the dog in there, cinch it down, and the dog is under your control, so you can try to find its owner and keep everything as copacetic as possible with another dog that we might have running here. So that's it, and it's got a speedometer, battery gauge. The battery gauge still works with the retrofit battery that I have in there. Always mirrors are essential because I love to see what's behind me, especially running dogs, because I'm moving at all different paces. If I'm running, sometimes with my younger dogs, I'm moving at a sprinting pace, and I want to know if someone's coming up on us real quick. Sometimes I'm going slow, and I want to see who's coming around me. Of course, it's just always good to know traffic and cars and everything going on. Mirrors make that essential. Mirrors are essential for that purpose. So that's basically it in a nutshell. The again, with the parking brake, it's got 5 speeds. It's not super powerful around here, a little hilly, but it works. Sometimes I do have to actually help the motor along by kicking like I demonstrated earlier. So that's WooFDriver, Dog Moto Sports here, and any questions or comments, please leave them in the section. I'll try to include a link to DC Trike. They will ship to the United States, obviously, and they're a pleasure to deal with. I believe the gentleman's name is Jeff. He's, I think, one of the developers or one of the owners, and I'll put all the information that, so maybe you can contact them if you're interested. Have a great day. WooFDriver signing off. Thanks for watching.